Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are all doing well, or welcome to if you are new here. We talk about all things sort of relationships, personal development, just life in general. So it's like, you know, real conversations for real growth, which is basically what this channel is about. So if you haven't seen the last two videos, they kind of set the precedent, set the tone for this kind of conversation. So this is the part 3 of those two. I will link the last video just up here, and the first one will be linked in the comments below. Actually, I probably can link both of them. I'll link both of them into the video so that you can check those out too. We talked about foundations and then communication, and then today we're going to be talking about the 4 attachment types. So let's get straight into the video, shall we? Make sure that you subscribe to the channel because it really helps me out. Leave a comment down below as well, because I do like to get those and, you know, see what you guys have to say. Also, give it a nice thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and press the notification button so that you get notified when I upload new videos. Right, let's get back into it. Okay, so I didn't really know much about this topic beforehand. I did do a little bit of research, so hopefully I get this right. And from doing that research, I had a little bit of, you know, opinion about it, and sort of trying to associate it with relationships and whether I'd actually ever experienced that within my own relationships from the past and stuff like that. So the 4 different types of attachments are, of course, we've got the secure attachment, anxious, dismissive or avoidant, and then you've got the fearful and avoidant. So I'm just going to read my notes about these as well. Obviously, I think everyone wants to be secure, so we'll leave that one till last because I think it's a little bit like, yeah. We'll start with the scariest one, which is the fearful avoidance. So this is obviously fear of being rejected, hard to trust people, and rely on their partner, and a really low self-esteem. So this could probably be, maybe you had a really great relationship that you thought was going really well, and then you had your heart absolutely devastatingly broken and you were completely blindsided, and now it's created you to go into this fearful and avoidant sort of situation. I think a lot of people have definitely experienced being in this sort of bubble for some time at least. That fear of being rejected, especially after the first big heartbreak. I think most people then get really scared. I know a few people in my life, actually, like some of my friends, I would probably put them in that category, and if you're watching this video you probably know who you are too. So yeah. I always find it's definitely because they've just been hurt, and that pain to them was they just don't want to ever experience it again, and the thought of possibly finding something new it almost doesn't outweigh that pain, if that makes sense. So they just get into that really fearful, just sort of only ever really gets to a certain point when they're meeting new people. It never goes further than that, and it's definitely a lot of personal work, in my opinion, that needs to happen there. I think you need to be ready to kind of let that guard down again, and that fear of being hurt and rejected is so big that it can really get in the way of developing anything real. I personally think it's always worth it. I always think that if you have a chance of finding your person, that pain is so worth it if it doesn't work out, because like realistically, you meet someone new, if you kind of vibe with them, it's 50-50, isn't it? Like you're either going to spend the rest of your lives together or you're going to break up. Like there's no in between really. So you might as well just risk it. Like what's the biggest thing that's going to happen? Like you don't work out, and you learn something new. You learn a new trait that you might be looking for someone. You learn more about yourself, and then you move on. Like that's how I just see it. I do think that every person comes into your life for a reason. So, you know, I love love personally, so I always think it's worth a little bit of pain if it means that it's the right person. Because if it's the right person, you don't get that pain. And if it isn't the right person, you're just one step closer to them. That's how I see it. And then we'll go on to talk about the second negative. I don't even know if they're negative really. I think they're all just people's personal like journeys within themselves and finding a relationship. So dismissive and avoidant, this is obviously people that avoid intimacy and vulnerability, commitment issues, and guarded and closed-hearted. So they probably are really hard to read, and kind of like you're saying you like me or whatnot, but you're not showing it. So the actions don't follow the words, or they just like say a load of mean things as well. But I always find these people tend to create that whole thing of like, if they're dating someone that is not secure within themselves as well, that creates that kind of complex of like wanting them to want them, if that makes sense. Wanting to be the one that changes them and the one that they change for and all that kind of stuff. I think definitely falls in this one with the people that are quite close-hearted, and kind of avoid that intimacy. There's that whole element of, if you do have a bit of a connection with them, I think a lot of people have like a saviour complex. So yeah, I believe this is another person that's obviously felt as though they've been done hard by, had their hearts broken. It's always a heartbreak. They let one person in and it doesn't work out, and they never want to do it again. I always find these people tend to gravitate towards the ones that are like stupidly open, you know, the people that are like so vulnerable and find it almost easy to like open up to people to an extent. Like they're just so open and they always seem to gravitate towards them, don't they? These people that are like really avoiding and don't really want to open up. The next attachment type we have is anxious. So with anxious attachment types, this is of course fear of abandonment, need for constant validation, and dependent on partners for self-worth. So I find this is probably one of the most common ones. I think this one and like the dismissive avoidant, I think those two tend to be quite common in relationships, especially like in the early stages and when you're quite young. I believe like, yeah, the fearful avoidant tends to be, I feel like those type of people don't even really, they tend to really just be like a lone wolf almost. And even if they are in a relationship, they almost don't really want to get to that deeper level with people because they're just so scared of that rejection. And then like dismissive avoidant is almost just like, they kind of go into cruise control, you know, they don't really speak a lot about their feelings. You're probably always in like a situationship with those type of people. And then of course you've got the anxious, which are like extra clingy, really need a lot of validating. And I find that anxious attachment is quite easy to slip into. I think even if you're quite secure, out of those four, if you're a secure type of attachment, the one you could quite easily slip into is definitely the anxious one. I think it depends sometimes on your partner as well. So your partner can make you feel very secure. And you know, sometimes you just know something's up, and it can cause you to kind of go into that anxious attachment type where you're like a bit like, something's off, energy's off, aura's switched, and I'm needing a bit of validation here. And I also find that you can also kind of slip into it a little bit if you're feeling threatened, or if there's like, you know, another really beautiful, smart and intelligent woman coming for your partner, and you're just a bit like, I'm threatened by that, to be honest, because they are really cool and my partner might like them more than me. It can kind of cause that, which I think, yeah, I do kind of see it as a little bit of a fluid aspect. You don't have to just be just one. Like, you can have traits of each, and it can be parts where you transition or you go into different attachment types depending on where you are in your relationship and how it kind of progresses. So don't be too scared. It's normal if you go into the fearful or dismissive, especially just after a breakup and you're a little bit like meh and you're kind of playing the field a little bit and you're dating around. That's totally fine. I think the problem comes when you don't allow yourself to progress into any other type of box, or even the aim should be secure, really, shouldn't it? So that's where the issue comes into play, is where you're not allowing yourself to progress into like a secure attachment type with someone. which, you know, let's talk about that secure attachment type. So secure obviously is healthy boundaries, mutual trust and support, controlled conflict resolution. So this is basically where everyone wants to be, right? It's a healthy relationship. You know, you're able to talk things through, you have trust with one another, you're not really insecure, you've got healthy boundaries with each other and others about your relationship too, and things like that. So I think this is where everyone aims to be, and it definitely is something that you will get to eventually. Maybe you start your relationship in a really secure attachment with each other, and that's brilliant. But as I was saying before, maybe it actually takes you a bit of time to get there. But these are totally normal for you to kind of switch in between too, as I was saying also. So like, maybe, you know, maybe something does happen in your relationship and it does make you go into a bit of a dismissive attachment aspect, and you've broken that trust a little bit, and now you're kind of a bit more guarded, and it takes a bit more time for them to, you know, to gain your trust again and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily that you're just stuck in one at all times, but it's definitely a good thing to understand and know, because one, for your own self to know how you're kind of going into a relationship and how you can move forward, and then two, to also understand your partner and what kind of attachment they're in. Because if you've got someone who's extremely fearful of rejection, you know, maybe words of affirmation and that sort of reassurance is really, really important to them to feel a bit more secure. And actually maybe it's you need to take a bit of the lead with being a bit more vulnerable and opening up and things like that. And then again, with like someone that's quite dismissive and they're a bit closed and things like that, it's, you know, maybe it's acts of service, it's showing them that you're not going to be going anywhere and things like that. And actually words of affirmation probably don't necessarily do it for them, because they need to see the proof, I'd say. Of course, if you have someone that is anxious, it's probably a mixture of both. It's being super duper open as well. I always find that just put yourself in their shoes when it's somebody that has anxiety or anxious attachment types. It's put yourself in their shoes, you know. Would you like it if they did these things? If it's a no, then you probably shouldn't be doing it, to be completely honest with you. Everyone is just working towards that secure attachment type. So I hope you find this video interesting. I did find it quite interesting looking into it. There's probably so much more when it comes to like other elements of your life, you know, like friendships and things like that as well. It could definitely fall into, but in terms of relationships, it's definitely interesting to understand what kind of attachment type someone might have and how you could then approach that, and what they may need in terms of love language, and to help them get to that secure attachment type with you. So let's talk about love languages in the next video, because I do think everyone kind of knows about love language, to be honest, and I just think it's quite sweet to know what each other's love languages are, because I think most times people tend to act or show their love language that they would like to receive, but it might not necessarily be what their partner likes. So we'll get into that next week. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and share with someone too, so that the channel can grow, because that would be great. See you. Bye.